The engine coughed once, twice, and then died, right as the German column reached the edge of the frozen forest. Silence followed. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that pressed against the ears and made men hold their breath. Unteroffizier Karl Weiss tightened his gloves around the steering wheel of the Kübelwagen and stared forward, heart pounding. Ahead lay a churned ribbon of mud and snow, torn apart by retreating armor and frozen again under the weight of winter. Behind him, soldiers waited. Orders demanded speed. Reality delivered resistance. Karl turned the ignition again. The engine whined. No traction. The rear wheels spun uselessly, flinging slush against the chassis. The Kübelwagen, light, efficient, obedient on paper, was trapped. Across the field, unseen but unmistakable, another engine roared. It didn't hesitate. An American Jeep burst through the trees like a thing alive, its squat body bouncing violently, tires biting deep into mud that had just humiliated German engineering. It climbed. It slid. It kept moving. Karl felt something colder than winter settle in his chest. This was not an isolated moment. It was a revelation, because in that single stretch of broken ground, the war between two philosophies, two ways of building for battle, was being decided. The German Kübelwagen had been born from efficiency. Ferdinand Porsche himself had shaped it from the civilian Volkswagen concept. Lightweight, simple, cheap. It was never meant to fight the terrain. It was meant to serve within it, on roads, on firm soil, in a war Germany believed would be swift and controlled. The American Jeep was born from panic. In 1940, the U.S. Army issued a desperate request: a light reconnaissance vehicle, four-wheel drive, capable of surviving anywhere on Earth. Automakers were given weeks, not months. Failure meant irrelevance. Willis answered with brute honesty. The Jeep was not elegant. It was not refined. It was unapologetically mechanical. Thick steel. A powerful engine. For driven wheels clawing at the ground like fists. Karl watched the Jeep vanish into the trees, leaving behind deep scars in the mud, and something else. Doubt. That doubt would follow him across continents. From Poland to France. From Russia to North Africa. From optimism to exhaustion. Because everywhere the Kübelwagen went, the war grew uglier. And everywhere the Jeep followed, it adapted. This was not just about vehicles. It was about what happens when a machine reflects the reality of war, and when it doesn't. Karl had once admired the Kübelwagen. In peacetime drills, it had been perfect. Air-cooled engine. No radiator to freeze. Independent suspension. Light enough to push out of trouble if needed. German engineering at its finest. But war had a way of punishing assumptions. The Kübelwagen was rear-wheel drive. On paved roads, that was enough. On the Autobahn, it sang. But war did not stay on roads. In Russia, roads vanished. Mud swallowed convoys whole. Snow erased boundaries. And the Kübelwagen, never designed to fight the earth itself, struggled. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, American engineers had built something different. The Jeep did not assume cooperation from the terrain. It assumed hostility. Its four-wheel drive was not a luxury, it was a declaration. Its low-range gearing allowed it to crawl where tanks hesitated. Its heavier frame absorbed punishment rather than deflecting it. American soldiers named their Jeeps. Trusted them. Slept beside them. German soldiers tolerated theirs. Karl remembered the first time he saw a Jeep up close, abandoned after an ambush in Tunisia. Bullet holes stitched across its hood. Tires shredded. Still, the engine block was intact. The Kübelwagen nearby had been flipped by the blast. The Jeep had stayed upright. It was then Karl realized something uncomfortable. The Americans didn't build for efficiency. They built for survival. WWII. 1942. The war had expanded into environments no planner had fully imagined. Deserts that devoured engines. Jungles that rotted metal. Mountains that punished weight. Cities that turned speed into liability. The Kübelwagen suffered quietly. Its lightness, once a virtue, became a weakness in sand and snow. Without four-wheel drive, it relied on momentum. And momentum was fragile. The Jeep thrived. In North Africa, Jeeps crossed dunes where Kübelwagens bogged down. In Italy, they climbed goat paths meant for mules. In Normandy, they rolled off landing craft and went straight to work. Karl watched American Jeeps ferry wounded men under fire, haul artillery shells, tow aircraft, serve as ambulances, radio platforms, and command vehicles. The Kübelwagen had a role. The Jeep had many. War rewards versatility. And by 1943, the difference was undeniable. The winter of 1944 was unforgiving. Karl's unit retreated through the Ardennes, roads shattered, supply lines collapsing. Their Kübelwagen struggled again, wheels spinning, engine screaming. Ahead, an American Jeep, captured days earlier, was pressed into service. It moved, slowly, relentlessly. No drama, no heroics, just progress. Karl felt the weight of understanding settle over him. By the way, if you're clinging to this moment with me, make sure to hit subscribe, because what comes next explains why this difference reshaped modern warfare itself. The Jeep didn't win because it was perfect. It won because it accepted imperfection. It accepted mud, snow, abuse, improvisation. It was a tool built to be mistreated. The Kübelwagen was a tool built to be respected. War respects neither. WWII late war. American factories were producing Jeeps by the tens of thousands. Parts were interchangeable. Repairs were simple. Soldiers fixed them with wire, scrap metal, and stubbornness. The Kübelwagen required precision. German supply chains collapsed. Replacement parts vanished. Mechanics disappeared. A broken Jeep was an inconvenience. A broken Kübelwagen was a liability. Karl watched as abandoned German vehicles littered the roads, not destroyed by enemy fire, but by exhaustion. The Jeep kept going. When the war ended, Jeeps didn't disappear. They became farmers' tools, rescue vehicles, civilian icons. The Kübelwagen faded. Not because it was useless, but because it was specific. The Jeep was universal. Karl saw one years later, painted yellow, pulling children through a village street. It still worked. The American Jeep outperformed the German Kübelwagen because it understood war as chaos. Because it was built not for plans, but for failure. And in war, the machine that survives failure wins.